Okay, look normal and chill. I'm
Is
cool.
this me being normal and chill?
I'm not being chill or normal.
I love how being normal and chill is both of us doing this. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today the formatting is a little bit different because I am here with Ev and Larissa. See, I'm pointing at you guys correctly on my screens. Ev and Larissa are the founding members, I'm going to say, of a brand new audio lit magazine called Eavesdrop magazine. And so I'm going to be talking to the two of them today just a little bit about the magazine, why it's important, and how you can find it and maybe contribute to it. Guys, before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell icon so you know when I upload new videos. I upload 3 days a week. Viewers, you've seen Ev before in my Vancouver vlog from a little back. We actually went to Maker Labs where both of you, well, Ev, I know you have your shop there. Larissa, is your shop based out of Maker Labs as well?
It used to be. I no longer live in Vancouver, so
right.
I just started doing my work again, and I'm doing it out of the hub at Cowichan Station.
When did we meet? Two years ago?
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess fall of 2021, because we both did Tools for Change.
Yeah.
At Maker Labs, and then we've been collaborating on a bunch of stuff at Maker Labs and mostly hanging out in the same circles, making cool stuff, making similar stuff.
Not only are you both artists, you both have backgrounds in lit. Ev, you're currently in acquisitions editing for New Society Publishers, and you're finishing up your MPub. And then Larissa, you're nearing the end of your MFA and you're working on a YA dual perspective novel. Okay, we are here to talk about Eavesdrop magazine. So first, I've read a bunch about it on the Instagram, on both of your Instagrams and your Kickstarter, but why don't you guys just sum up for me, what is Eavesdrop magazine?
We originally came up with the idea for Eavesdrop because we were talking about doing a podcast. It was after some event at Maker Labs. We went out to Strathcoa Brewing, and over beers we were talking about just some stuff about the publishing industry and about creative writing and about gay representation in that and about the queer community in the creative writing space and about some of the things where we have a lot of trouble with how sort of literary magazines are run, and we'd like to see, different ways of doing it, right? And different focuses. For me personally, I see literary magazines and sort of the literary awards sphere and sort of what we consider the high level of writing, especially in the Canadian scene, to often be pretty limited in its audience and in its reach, right? So if you're published in Brick magazine, that's super great for your career. It looks great on a resume. It could get you nominated for awards, but how many people are actually reading that? It is hard for regular people to access this stuff often. And there can be a culture of, I don't want to say elitism, because I don't think that's quite right. How do you get poetry in front of people? How do you get how do you get your writing in front of people in a way that people actually want to read it and access it? How do you put it in their day-to-day, and how do you get it in front of people in a way that feels exciting and fresh and accessible?
I come from a very much not artistic background. It's kind of interesting how I'm on this path. I come from a very, very physical focused background, blue collar background. No one's really interested in reading. And so just talking to them and seeing what they would need to be more engaged in the arts community. They don't read, but they listen to podcasts and they listen to these other forms of art that I feel that society does not consider art. And so we kind of want to not only challenge those societal norms of what is art, what is literature, but also be part of that change. And so I think that's the most important thing for me, is not only wanting to be the change, but also be a catalyst for others to change. Yeah, my hugest thing is accessibility, not only for people who need it for visual and hearing impairments, but also accessibility of people who did not get an MFA, who did not get, a bachelor's. Art should be for everybody. And I think I would go a little further than Ev and say that it is elitist, as a person who produces YA and different types of content, spec and genre. There is this onus that ooh, you're lesser. Oh, you write for kids. Like, your stuff isn't as good. Like, it's not as literary. But like, I really want to rebel against that. I just want to create something that draws more people in to showcase what marginalized authors have to offer in accessible ways.
I was looking through your like Kickstarter tiers and everything, and you talk about, you know, digital copies versus paper copies, and I'm just wondering, like, so what is the format that this is going to be? I know you're talking about doing a podcast, you are doing digital, you're doing limited paper copies, because I know you're on an environmentalism side as well, and you've mentioned that it's quarterly, so just, break it down for me. How does this
You're like,
work?
what do you make?
What is the product?
A combination of digital written content, but also with a huge audio focus. So all of our written content will also be read out by a voice actor. That is our vision, by a human voice actor. We'll have the podcast. We also want to do community outreach. We want poetry events. We want in-person things. And we will be doing limited copies once a year of an anthology. These things are very much up in the air, dependent on our funding. So we haven't really gotten to the point of deciding the yearly anthology will look like, how many pieces from our quarterly anthologies will be included in that, and how often we can or will be able to produce the voice actors. Because, you know, it all comes down to funding. So please check out our Kickstarter.
The Kickstarter
But
link
ideally,
is in the
in an
description
ideal,
below.
If you see the rewards, you'll see that backers get limited editions of our digital anthologies. And so what that means is we're just going to include more artists and more graphics in the backers only versions. And we might consider doing this moving forward for our Patreon subscribers as well. And so that's just getting more artists paid and then hopefully enticing people to subscribe, because our main goal is to never ever have a paywall. Like, we need to make some kind of funding in some way, especially because grants are never guaranteed. So we have just a little bit, you know, of donations and Patreon subscriptions that hopefully will be able to keep us going.
we want to pay people when we publish their work, basically. If we have special one-off projects, which is also something we've been talking about doing, like if we're doing smaller chapbooks or smaller like fiction collections, which is also part of our mandate to get our work in front of people. We have some different exciting ideas about how we're going to do that, but we've been looking at working with some local printers and like local artisanal, like small batch printers. We mostly want to keep it audio, partially because audio is so accessible, and like you can have it on like podcatchers and Spotify and different places like that. The other vision is like we don't always want to have it being voice actors. If authors want to read their own work and submit as an audio file, we are super into that idea, because I think no one knows how their work, like their poem or their fiction, should be read like the author does. And then if people are uncomfortable with that, then we'll get someone else to read it. And like, maybe that will be us at the beginning.
I love that idea. And so in an ideal world, what is the reach of this project? So you've talked a lot about like obviously local printers, local authors, etc. In an ideal scenario, would this be like a Canada-wide sort of reach or worldwide? Like, what is a sort of long-term goal for you guys?
We've briefly talked about who we are going to publish first. Like, I think we're focusing on Canada first, and especially BC, but not limited to BC. And then we're gonna see how that goes, and possibly have editions that are opened up internationally. But that's just for the author submissions. As far as reach goes, my dream is to have people all over the world accessing it and seeing what Canadian writers have to offer, especially Indigenous Canadian writers or Indigenous writers, because a lot of people, again, I am with a British woman, and lots of their family just doesn't know anything about what happened to Indigenous peoples in Canada and have never experienced those voices. So I think it's really important to provide a platform for painting Canadian perspective, because it's not a Canadian perspective, it's an Indigenous perspective. But just having that, so other people can be like, oh, you know, like this is that art, like this is indigenous art, and really that is important to me.
That's what I think is so cool about audio as a medium and digital medium, that we don't have to worry about global shipping or what have you. Like there's extra costs associated with that, and having our main product, our core product as a digital audio format means that we already have that really broad reach, and people all over can already access that and support us and join us.
How did you decide on the name Eavesdrop?
Oh,
Or maybe it's not a simple question.
Panic.
I love that.
Gay panic.
Well, what does it mean?
It was actually a suggestion from one of my queer friends, because we were going to go with filament first, but then the first like 3 Google search results were like a very erotic magazine out of the UK, and competing with that might have been like really hard from an SEO perspective. So we were like what's our vision, like what are we doing? And then I was thinking of more like punk rock names like Distortion, and I was asking people who were in our community but also not in our community, and the consensus was with all these, you know, more abstract names, like what is it though? Like I don't really understand like what it has to do with your magazine. And my friend Claire suggested, Eavesdrop, like it's kind of like people are listening in to your world and like to the worlds of these artists, and I really like that. And Ev was like, oh yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with it. Like I feel like it really guides how I feel about what we're doing, right? Like it's a little like, oh, what are you guys doing over there? Oh,
what are the gays?
Oh, hey.
What is the gay
to?
agenda this month?
So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's really set the tone for the visual language for me, and like it's really like it feels playful.
My next question, we were kind of leading into it and then I paused the video. The graphics and everything you're doing for your current promo, who's making those?
So not gonna lie to you, they are AI.
Are they?
Yeah, like I've considered it might be cool to talk about it and be like, hey, we made this as AI because right now we have no funding, but like once we have funding, we never want to do this again. Like honestly, like that's kind of
the robots.
It's true. Like honest to God, that's the thing, because it's like we don't have the capacity right now, right? Like, so we're sourcing AI art, and it's not what we want to be doing. But anyway, yeah.
I think they look really good, and I know that you have the ability to do it.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you.
Of course. But it's the funding and the time, because you're both doing the most. Based on, like, I was like, give me a little, like, breakdown of what you guys are up to right now, and it's just like, okay.
We're like 3 jobs and a master's degree each.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a small business.
Yeah. So, thanks for making time for me today.
Well, thank you.
The graphic design, I'm doing the graphic design on Adobe Classic. That's what I paid for my master in publishing degree for.
Hilarious. We've talked about it a few times now, and it's very prevalent in your promotional materials as well, that queer voices, indigenous voices, I feel like I saw things about possibly like disabled voices and just people of color in general. It's very important to uplift those voices right now. And so just talk to me a little bit more about why it's so important right now, and then if you have any kind of like action plan on how to actually do that.
So for me, like the background I'm coming from is I did a previous master's degree in social justice. So that was gender, race, sexuality at the UBC Social Justice Institute. So that's my background for fundamentally understanding sort of the ways that, marginalized communities get marginalized by white settler narratives. And I think the two of us have talked a lot about how we need to be really careful because we're both like white settlers, living on unceded territory. And so we want to be really careful about our blind spots and about where we might miss things. And we definitely want to open up our team and invite more people in to being on this team and to building this community and this lit mag. And so we want to get more perspectives in here from like the editorial side, from the top down. One of the big takeaways for me being in the Masters of Publishing program this year at SFU, one of the members of my cohort is a blind person. Shout out to Jill. We love her. And I had never worked with a blind person before. And I learned so much from working with her. Like, I had not had, like, it really made me aware of the ways that I don't have to think about how I move through the world, like literally how I move down the street. And especially because we were talking about a lot of publishing things, it honestly really made me consider the ways that I take for granted how I read and how I engage with literature and how I engage with websites, which is way harder. It's also important to me that our website be print disabled friendly. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I definitely would like to reach out to and compensate Indigenous readers and Indigenous leaders, elders in the community. It's important to me to not be leading myself down this path of, reconciliation, because I am, as Evelyn said, a white settler. So I'm hoping that we can work closely with them to see what they think about us in their community and how we can work to make the platform accessible to them and from their vision. And so I don't know how that's going to look yet, because not a lot of literary magazines have done this in their founding days, especially since all the heavy hitters are decades old. Some of them are established in times of great sadness, and where Indigenous peoples were still obviously in residential schools, and not just Indigenous, but like BIPOC voices too.
It's possible for us to make an author-friendly, exciting, friendly, and accessible literary magazine that is also extremely high quality, holds to standards, and also supports our authors to that standard, right? I think there's a lot of room for us to uplift voices by meeting authors where they are, seeing potential in authors and offering them the support, within our capacity to say, like, let's make this beautiful.
If it is just the two of us, or if we do bring like 2 or 3 people on board long term, the dream is to get so many submissions that we can't handle it, but I don't want to promise that we can give feedback on every piece, because if we're getting 100 pieces a week, if we're getting hundreds of submissions, thousands of submissions a month, like, this is like, I'm off in the Milky Way over here.
That's the dream. That's the dream, right?
Of course.
We want to offer workshops and seminars and like make that kind of content either digitally or in person.
Like, in a lot of ways still, we are like still really hashing out the fine details. Like, we have the broad overview of what our product is, and we know what our values are, we know what our mandate is, and a lot of these details I think will fall into place as we feel out like what our capacity is going to be. If we only get a few submissions, I think that will look very different from if we get like 100 submissions the first week. And so I think in a lot of ways, like, it's really hard to know exactly how it'll all play out, but like, I have a lot of faith in Larissa and in our ability to communicate, and like the fact that we're on the same path and we are holding hands.
There was another part of your question that's been like right here. We're gonna have to reach out to the community, because it's going to be an issue if we get 100 submissions from like white dudes,
Like, we want to make the list more diverse, but we don't want to force people to out themselves to be in our magazine, and we don't want people to have to like be out to be in, if you know what I mean.
Be out to be in.
At the same time, we all know that there's a huge diversity issue in publishing. Like, there's tons of studies, everyone knows it, like it was the quiet thing not said until recently. How do we reach beyond our networks to try and access the communities that we're not a part of? But we have to have a relationship of trust there. We can't just be doing it to check a box, right? It can't just be that we're reaching out to the Cowichan Nation to be like, can you support our magazine so that we look good? Like, no, I don't. I have no interest in that. It has to be based on a relationship. It has to be built on good faith and trust. And I'm not just an intent, but listening.
We were just talking about submissions, and I know your submissions open July 8th, I want to say. For my viewers that are watching this video right now, if they wanted to submit, how would that work?
We've landed on the theme of new beginnings, because, our project's a new beginning. The light after COVID is a new beginning, and it just seems
we're both in big new beginnings places in our personal lives.
That's
You've
true.
Just moved to Duncan, to Cowichan. And I'm like starting a new chapter in my personal life, so it kind of like fits.
We haven't ironed out the nitty-gritty details of how long our submissions will be. like if we're doing 1,500 words for short fiction, how many pages of poetry, we're still talking about that. And again, it all comes down to funding.
We'll definitely be
Fantastic.
accepting poetry and fiction and short nonfiction. That will be available on our submittable page on July 8th.
And I saw also in one of your Instagram posts that you're doing a launch event.
We are going to be hosting a launch party when our first quarterly anthology launches, which will be, hopefully, we were saying September. Again, this all depends on our Kickstarter getting fully funded, because if our Kickstarter doesn't get fully funded, then we can't pay anybody, and we don't want to do this if we can't pay writers for their work. So yeah, but Maker Labs said that they could generously donate their space for our launch party.
Fantastic. And my viewers have actually seen Maker Labs.
Yeah.
Because of the one.
Yeah, that'll be an in-person event in Vancouver.
We're also going to stream it as well, so people can look at the readings online if they would like.
I think I can say this in the next 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Where can we find you both? I'm going to have like all your links and everything in the description, but...
We have a website, we are on Kickstarter, and we are on Instagram.
Perfect.
And Facebook.
Okay.
And soon to be Tumblr. I think I'm going to do that. And we are also on TikTok.
Also, congrats you guys got for Kickstarter.
We got a Project We Love badge.
That's what it is, Project We Love. That's really, really cool. This was a really great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I'm really excited about Eavesdrop magazine. I'm about to head over to Kickstarter myself, and I am looking forward to getting one of those anthologies one day.
Thank you so much for having us on your channel. It's so fun to be a guest again.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you. You're a great host. We really appreciate you.
Before we go, everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell icon so you know when I upload new videos. I upload 3 days a week. And I feel like I'm going to be talking about Eavesdrop magazine again sometime soon.
Once you get your first anthology, you can show it on the channel.
Of course.
Unboxing.
It's an envelope with the anthology.
Let me unbox this envelope.
Yeah, I'll update my viewers as you guys post your own updates, and this is gonna close in 3 seconds.